Good evening. The Rio Rancho Board of Education meeting for Monday, October 11th, 2021 is now called to order. If all will please arise for the Pledge of Allegiance, Board Secretary Noreen Scott will present the pledge for us. And if everyone else would please mute your microphones.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you so much, Secretary Scott. Kim, can you take a roll call for us?
Yes, ma'am. President Galbraith.
Present.
Vice President Morgan.
Present.
Secretary Scott.
Present.
And Board Member Cullen.
Present.
You have a quorum, 4-0.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, we'd like to welcome everyone out to our meeting tonight. We especially always like to welcome all those who are here for commendations. Coming up, we have some teachers here who are with us. We also have previous board member Coleman, who will be doing a commendation for us. So we're excited to have them with us, and we'd like to welcome them to our meeting tonight. We'd also like to welcome all those who are viewing on YouTube tonight. We're glad that we have technology and that we're able to broadcast our meetings in that way. And we're grateful for all those who help make that with our district staff who make it so we can do that. So tonight we will go ahead and start off with our introductory comments by Dr. Visu Cleveland, our superintendent of schools.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for being with us this evening. I would like to begin with mentioning our commendations. We have a presentation of a service plaque for retired board member Wynn Coleman, and I'll be talking about that in just a moment. And then we also have a presentation of the Linda Kitts Formula for Excellence by the Rio Rancho Education Foundation. Presenting the recognitions are Nicole Erdely, who is Rio Rancho Public Schools instructional coach, and Pat DeVosta, who is the assistant principal at Rio Rancho High School. We're glad to have them come and share those foundation commendations with us this evening. And commendations, I would like to read what is on the Wynn. If you would come on and so we can see you. We have a plaque for Wynn Coleman, and I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to show you the plaque. And then President Galbraith will hand deliver the plaque to retired member Coleman. So what is on the plaque? It says Rio Rancho Public Schools, Igniting Student Potential, Wynn D. Coleman, Board of Education, Recognition and Appreciation of Service. Today's date, of course. And then Wynn was elected February 7th, 2017, and she has served to just recently. She has been secretary of the board as well as a board member. And so this is the very nice plaque that we'll be getting to her. And there had been more room on the plaque. I guess the thing that I would say is, we certainly recognize her longtime effort to improve the social emotional learning of children in our district. That was a tremendous passion for her. So I will now turn it over to Amanda Galbraith, and she would like to say a few things as well as the rest of the board. But Wynn, thank you for being with us this evening.
Oh my goodness, Wynn. I knew that this was kind of coming up and that we'd have this opportunity to talk to both you and Catherine. I didn't expect it to be so soon, but it is a great honor to recognize you tonight here in our board meeting. And I think that I'll probably, since we worked together like this for the last couple of years, this is how I'll think of you, is on my Google Meet, smiling there. Mm-hmm. But when I think of Wynn and all that she has worked on over the last few years with the school board, and there's two words that go through my mind. And that is, I wonder if she can guess what those two words are. I don't know. Those two words are...
I'm afraid. And not those two words, but...
Those two words are due diligence. And it's a phrase that, I never really thought a whole lot of. People say it all the time, but it wasn't until I started working with Wynn. And she would always say, whenever we talk, she would always say, I'm going to do my due diligence. Please do your due diligence. And we need to do our due diligence. And so as I was preparing this, I actually looked up, and Webster Dictionary actually has a definition for due diligence, which is the care that a reasonable person exercises to avoid harm to other persons or their property. And as I read that, I thought that word, or that phrase, the care, really stood out to me about you. And that over the last 4 years that you have shown that you care about the students of Rio Rancho Public Schools. You have done your due diligence to try to better our district so that we can better care for our student body. One of the most important characteristics, I feel like, for a good school board is to have a group of individuals with diverse experiences. And this helps us, right, to bring concerns and questions and thoughts that others on the board might not have thought of. And of course, sometimes those differences, we don't always see eye to eye. And honestly, thank goodness that we don't. But what I know about you, Wynn, is that as we've gone through all these different times, and maybe times where we've disagreed, I always, always, always have known where your heart is. You want to make Rio Rancho Public Schools the best that it can be. And so I really want to say thank you for your service and for being on the Rio Rancho Board of Education. We have just so much appreciated you. So thank you. So now we all get to just say something to you, Wynn. Don't you disappear. And so our commendations come later, but because I'm speaking, Catherine, would you rather we wait until we get to our
Madam President, I
Okay.
prefer that we keep to the set agenda.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Wynn, if you will stick around with us for just a little bit longer, we will go through and give everyone just an opportunity to say something about you. So stick with us just for a few more minutes, and we'll let Dr. Cleveland go ahead and go back to her opening comments for the evening.
Okay, and I should have clarified that. The reason we moved this one ahead was because we had one board member that might need to step away. And so wanted to be able to cover this during that time. So if the board prefers not to do that, we'll go down, but it's perfectly acceptable because it was under accommodations in my presentation. So it's really up to the rest of the board, but that was the thinking behind it, is one board member was going to have to step aside for a few minutes.
Well, and on that, Catherine, if you feel comfortable, I would like to let everyone go ahead and say something briefly, if that.
That's fine. Yeah, it's just it was it was out of order on the agenda. So you know me, I'm a stickler. But yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Okay. So with that, let's actually go ahead and we'll just go to the board and let you all have an opportunity to say something for a moment. And Noreen, Scott, you want to go ahead and start?
I'd be glad to. Wynn, it's been a joy serving with you. I'm sorry that we didn't have enough in-person meetings where we really got a chance to discuss back and forth, but I have always appreciated your consistent direction and service and the knowledge that you brought to the board. Thank you for transferring some of that knowledge to each one of us as we joined the board. And I wish only the best for you as you go forward. And if we can ever be of service, please let us know. Thank you again for your service.
All right, and we'll go to Vice President Morgan.
Wynn, I just want to say thanks for everything. You've been very supportive. Great spending time with you during the convention times. Learned a lot from you. I really appreciate that. I appreciate your honesty, your upfrontness. You were always straightforward about what was important, what made sense. So I just want to say thank you. I really, really appreciate what you've offered to the board, and don't think now one moment that what you taught us, what you inspired us, what you instilled in us is going to be forgotten. We'll remember that. So thanks again for all your support.
All right, and then Catherine Cullen, who served the longest with you on our board. Go ahead, Catherine.
So I wrote it out, of course, because you know how I am. So we go ahead and go through this, and it would have been a lot longer, but I know we have to stay kind of within some timelines here. But When I want to thank you for your service to the Rio Rancho School District in our community. Not only were we board members, but we became good friends over the past years. You accomplished so much while serving the board. You served on the board of directors for the New Mexico School Board Association as a large district representative. You've also served as secretary for our board. You are one of the 4 in Rio Rancho School Board history that has received the Master Board Member recognition. You have not only been an advocate for the district, but as well as for the community. You've did a tremendous amount of work on behalf of the mental health, and I know that you will continue to bring awareness to these issues. You are currently presenting to the region meetings, and I hope it brings a light to how much our state needs to work on these issues. I know that many are very appreciative of your work in this area. You have advocated for the district both state and nationally. You have had thoughtful, insightful questions and worked hard on behalf of the board. And you spent countless hours researching before making decisions that impacted our district, and we genuinely appreciate your work. You have told me that you have grown since serving on the board, and I know that you will take forward all that you have learned over the years to your new endeavors. So again, Wynn, thank you so much for all that you have done. We certainly appreciate you, and I am really blessed to call you my friend.
All right, Wynn. Thank you, Catherine, for saying all those and bringing recognition to all of the wonderful things that Wynn's done for us. Wynn, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, thank you. And I have said repeatedly that my experience on the board has been priceless. And I think I realized a little bit ago that based on the and really understanding the role and the impact that it had has just been incredible. And I knew it was either going to strengthen my resolve and my decision making or make me doubt it. And I'm so grateful that I can say that it really has made me, doing my due diligence, has just made me feel very knowing that decisions, whether supported 100% or not, that they were done in the best interest of our students, our staff, and our community. It's been a privilege to serve, and I'm just so grateful for the support from the people in the district and for the incredible friendships and everybody's commitment to our community. So thank you so much. And thank you for this time and the kind words from everybody.
All right. Thank you again, Wynn. I feel kind of sad even letting you go, but I'm sure you're happy to, to jump off. But thank you again. Just thank you for everything that you've done. And thanks for getting on tonight.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Okay, Dr. Cleveland, I'll send it back over to you. And
Okay, thank you. All right. I'm not so sure why this is so small on my computer, but at any rate, technology is great and wonderful when it works just the way you want it to. We will go to the second commendation when we get to that point on the agenda, but we were pretty close to 6 o'clock. I did want to make the board aware of Amazon donation. Amazon has made an offer of a donation of 15,000 reams of copy paper, a good number of folding tables, and some really nice movable steel mesh carts from the move-in process at the new Amazon warehouse in our area. And so this is obviously a very generous offer, but just as importantly, all of these are things we can really use in the district. And so we're really happy to have them make that offer. The board needs to approve any donation as a policy 202. So the board will be asked to approve that. I wanted you to know that Kim Vesley was the link or the contact for this donation, and we appreciate her working with the donor at Amazon. And then, of course, we thank Amazon for thinking of the Rio Rancho Public School District and for this very generous offer. So there's just a picture of the carts, but again, they're all things we really need. The only thing that Rio Rancho Public Schools will need to do is send a truck and pick them up. And we're really quite capable of doing that. So we applaud them for their community spirit and for this generous donation. Every year, the board is asked to confirm the open meetings resolution, and that resolution will consider the board is asked to consider approval of resolution 21-009, and it will be presented by Lauren Hatch, who is the general counsel for the district. This resolution is required by state statute. And it was passed in 1978. It's Chapter 10, Article 15, and there was a major amendment in 2013 related to this particular act. But basically, this act just requires a public body to make an agenda of a regular or special meeting available to the public at least 72 hours in advance of the meeting, and to post those agendas on the public body's website if one is maintained. And of course, we do have one. And so Lauren Hatch will address that issue when it comes up before the board. Now, this is something you always have a little danger in putting this out, but we're talking about tent rentals for fine arts, and I want you to know this is not it. And I thank the person who had a great sense of humor that sent this to me and thought that I ought to include it for all of you. So this is actual, it's not made up. It's a high school in Washington State. And when I saw it, I got a real chuckle. So I thought maybe you all would enjoy seeing it. So you always run the risk of putting it out that people think that's what it is. So I want to be very clear that is not what we have in mind at all. But I thought it was very interesting. And next slide, please. Okay, so what are the tents that we're going to be looking at for fine arts? You will be asked to approve an invitation to bid 2022-006, and it's for tent services. And this recommendation is going to be presented by Kurt Schmidt, who made the request, the Executive Director of Fine Arts, as well as the Chief Procurement Officer, Michael Madrid. These will be utilized when weather makes it very difficult to hold outdoor classroom practices and events. And Mr. Schmidt can talk a little more to that in the presentation. But during the pandemic, the performing arts like band and choir were required to hold classes outside as identified in the Public Ed Department toolkit. And so I would have you also know that we still have some classes being held outside. So this is a request to have shelter for those programs, and will allow them hopefully to be able to stay outside a little bit longer. We really don't know what's going to happen in the future with the toolkit. So this is precautionary in nature. But, I just want to stress that these will be used. Next slide, please. These will be used for other events as well. And they'll have a lot of uses just simply beyond the pandemic. So I wouldn't want anyone to think that this purchase is just for the pandemic and just for this period of time. We can certainly use those covers for other things as well, whether they're events or whether they are other activities. And, it will be, I think they'll be well used. Okay. The board will be asked to replace former board member Coleman. We need a large district representative for the New Mexico School Boards Association. And the board will consider appointing a representative to the board of directors. And the presenter this evening will be Amanda Galbraith, president of the board. And then I am sure Catherine Cullen will also want to address that in terms of the role by the School Boards Association. Next slide, please. Okay. The board will also discuss the adoption of Resolution 21-010, requesting the deadline for the review and comment of proposed changes for the New Mexico K-12 social studies standards. And what we're asking is for a little longer period of time to be able to review those and make sure the community has seen them and has had an opportunity to provide feedback. The extension of the deadline, we think is an important thing. We want to be sure that we know exactly what's in there. We also want to look at what kind of professional development we will need to implement the new standards. And we really feel like this is due the middle of November that really we've not had time to really review it in any depth. Many school districts are submitting a similar resolution. Most are asking for a delay for a year. I would not recommend that. And the reason for that is I'm afraid that it might interfere with the social studies adoption. And that is something we don't want to happen. We don't want the state to skip a year. Our materials are already fairly old. And so, we're hoping that maybe a shorter period of time, maybe 4 to 5 months, we would have time to work with our staff. The other thing that some of the people that we've talked to that were on the committee feel like that some of the things that they had didn't end up quite the way they had hoped. And so they also would have an opportunity to be able to go back and have some additional conversation. So the bottom line is we want to be sure that we have enough time to purchase materials and to provide for the professional development for teachers who are given the responsibility of the new standards. But we also want to be very sure about the standards, and we want to be sure the community has had a chance to review the standards. And so we do recommend the resolution. In all fairness, I do want you to know that there's been one district that's had their request turned down. I do know, though, that several others have been sent and are pending. So, certainly there has already been one response back. I still think, being sure that we are clear on what those standards are is important. And this has the strong support of the curriculum instruction department. I wanted to share, I think you are aware, we've talked with you in the past about the challenges we have with our staff and students who are having a very difficult time getting tests when they need them for COVID-19. And they were traveling to the Balloon Fiesta Park, or they were going a variety of different places. Some of the local businesses, pharmacies who carry it, had long waiting lists. And so in conversations with the state, they said they would make some money available to school districts. And so, what we're hoping is to be able to greatly reduce the amount of time that staff and students have to spend on testing by having a site here in Rio Rancho, very centrally located and easy and accessible for people to use. We've had someone working on that, Mariah Affentrager. She talked a little bit about this before, but we are getting pretty close on finalizing a contract with the Premier Medical Group to provide services in Rio Rancho. But we don't have that completely finished. Lauren Hatch has been working on that and has asked for a few revisions, but we think we're fairly close. We're pretty excited about it because two things that I know the board had raised some concerns about. One of them is using a school site, whether that would contribute to traffic, whether that would increase infection rates. There could be some things that, people were a little worried about. By finding a non-school site that's local, then we would not have people going in and out of schools. And, we would have a facility that needed rent to be paid, but the state has agreed to pay that rent. So I think everybody wins in that. And we're really close to getting that finalized. We were hoping to be able to start next week. If not next week, maybe the week after that. But, it's no cost to the district and a great benefit to families and to for their children and to our staff who do not have to be away or spend a lot of their own personal time getting tested. And then I just want to put a plug for a request that came in this afternoon. DS Landscaping is one of our local businesses and a wonderful family who supports our schools in many different ways. And years past, they have done a Coats for Kids. And so it's that time again. And so they will be collecting coats for their annual coat drive. And the DS family organizes it and plans it. And it's just a wonderful event. So starting on the 18th, which is next week, they'll have a rack of coats, hats, gloves available for kids who might be in need of a coat this year. And the coat rack will be out daily in front of their business Monday through Friday from 8 to 4 p.m. And if you call ahead, if your family has need of that, you'll call ahead to DS Landscaping, tell them your children's sizes. They will try to have those out there. So, it will be a much quicker process. And if you in the community have a desire to help, you can drop off new or slightly used clean coats to donate to families. And so it's just such a wonderful thing for them to do as a family in our community and as a business in our community. And if you want to participate in that, then feel free. They are located just a few blocks from the district office and just kind of around the corner from us. But we appreciate that. And we appreciate the support that they have given our children. Do you have any comments or questions on anything I presented?
Let me go to the board. Actually, I do have a quick question. As far as that resolution that was drafted up in regards to the social studies curriculum, have we been able to put that website out to our community, our Rio Rancho public schools community, so that parents know where to go to review that?
I believe that I will have a board member, Galbraith. I believe it is on our website, but we will double check that. And as a second, I'm pretty sure that, and Beth, if you're on, feel free to jump in. I believe we have put that out on our community newsletter, but if we haven't, we will. So we'll try to send it out on all of our regular Facebook, the newsletter, and on our website.
Okay, thank you. That'd be wonderful. Anyone else, questions or comments? Catherine, do you have anything off of the comments?
No, not right now.
Okay.
All right.
Jeff, anything right now?
No, I'm going to wait till that time when it's presented.
Okay, sounds good. And Noreen, Scott, anything at this time?
No questions.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thank you so much,
Good.
Dr. Cleveland. Appreciate it. All right. So for our next item, so item E, to approve the prioritized agenda and proposed time allocations. Any changes that need to take place to our agenda as it's been presented?
Madam Chairman, I move approval of the agenda and the prioritized agenda and the proposed time allocations.
I'd like to note that we did the accommodation
Okay.
prior, so that it needs to be adjusted on the agenda.
Okay. Secretary Scott, do you want to add that to your motion with a note that we have, that we
Amended the agenda. I mean,
amended
yeah.
the-
Okay, let me amend my motion. I move that we approve the prioritized agenda with the alteration of having moved the accommodation forward and the proposed time allocations.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion by Secretary Scott. Is there a second?
Board
Board
member.
member Jeff Morgan, I second.
Okay, and we have, let me rewrite that. And we have a second by Jeff Morgan. And then Kim, can you take a roll call vote for us, please?
Yes, Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
and President Galbraith.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Okay. For our next item, it's our public comment. As I go through tonight, I'm actually going to read through the public comment. As I've been talking to a couple people from the public, I just thought it was an interesting thing to know. A lot of people don't know, and usually we have it in our agendas, but since we've been meeting virtually, it's done up a little different. But as we have public comment, we are not, as you can see how careful we are with the agenda and what we've been talking about, we are not allowed to make comments back to those public comments. So whether virtually or whether we are in person, when we have these public comment, we can't, unless it's on our agenda, we cannot make comment back to them. So we are so grateful that when we receive these public comments, for all those who would like to give public comment, you can go, for now, you can go to our RRPS board page and you can submit a comment. And we read each and every one of those comments. And there's a form right there on that page where you can give public comment. For tonight, we have a total of 10 public comments. Actually, we have 9 that came in on that board page. and one that came in through the mail. And tonight I'm going to go ahead and read through our public comments. And so we'll start with, we have Jonathan W., who said in his public comment, this is him saying, so stop forcing the kids to wear masks. There is no scientific evidence that they will work, and they are not healthy for our kids. My kid will not be COVID testing, nor will he ever get vaccinated. And why don't you have a public in-person school board meeting and let the parents' voices be heard? We know why. Our next one is from Catherine Wakefield, who wrote, why don't you actually go over the public comments instead of just saying what they are about? Why are you having kids wear masks? If you look up the health risks of masks, it is more dangerous for people to wear them than COVID itself. I also am not happy that my kid was quarantined for having a migraine, which is stated in his school medical stuff that we fill out every year. Our next one is from David Harris, who wrote, where can parents find the form allowing for religious exemptions from kids wearing masks? Where can parents find the form allowing for religious exemptions from taking the vaccine? Please announce this. Our next one is from John Tizzy. He says, I've seen a proposal that either has been or will be sent to the board to ban the teaching of critical race theory. Mr. Morgan, you, sir, are someone who has probably experienced racism in your life, and we understand that teaching about the challenges that you face on a daily basis. To not teach about how race has impacted and shaped our nation and our lives is irresponsible of the RRPS board. We teach New Mexico history in middle school and high school about, and that is full of instruction about how race impacted our state. Are we just going to throw that all away and let Native Americans in our schools be damned because they are afraid of admitting the atrocities that occurred when the white man arrived in this area? Just because you don't want to admit that past events happened doesn't change the fact that those events did happen. What would be next? We don't teach that Hitler tried to take over the world and committed mass genocide. Do we stop teaching about President Kennedy's assassination? Do we stop teaching about 9/11, 2001 because it's too painful for us to remember? Please use some common sense and ignore the request to stop teaching critical race theory. We also received 5 comments from Petra Smith, and I will just read one of hers. You claim that it is in the best interest for all of our children, all of us, that our children wear a mask to school. You're claiming that it's best for our children's health. What's best for human interest and best for human interest is always will be allowing humans to have their own freedom of choice without someone forcing their will and fears upon us. You're forcing segregation based on your own fears and your own personal interest. Your job is not concerned about our children's or anybody's health. You are not nurses or doctors. You are not responsible for any health organization. Your only focus should be on our children's education. If your focus is somewhere else, it is clear that you failed your job. Sincerely, Petra Smith. And the only reason I will not read the rest of Petra's, all of hers are also, they are all about mask wearing. And so all of her comments with that one are all about mask wearing and our students. And so those are our public comments for the evening. Once again, if anyone would like to give public comment, you are welcome to do so by going to our RRPS board page and submitting those comments, and we appreciate them. Okay, moving on to our commendations for the night. We have already recognized Wynn Coleman, who has retired from our board. So we will move on to our second commendation, which is, we have a lot of teachers and presenters who have been waiting for this. So thank you. And if you guys want to go ahead and turn on your camera. But this is the Linda Kitts Formula for Excellence recipients from the Rio Rancho Education Foundation. And tonight we have Nicole Erderly on. She's our instructional coach. And we also have Pat DeVosto, the assistant principal over at Rio Rancho High School, who will be presenting this. And I see the teachers have already put their cameras on, so I'm grateful for that. Okay, I leave it to you, Nicole, or to Pat. I don't know who's going first.
President Galbraith, Dr. Cleveland, and members of the board, we're very excited to be here this evening. We want to let you know about the first round of recipients who received financial awards thanks to the Linda Kitts Formula for Excellence. This has been the work that we're doing through the Rio Rancho Education Foundation. President Bill Stanage, board member Nicole Smith. And so it's been with the blessing of the foundation. And along with this, once applicants submitted their applications and requested the money, Nikki Ertley, the secondary math curriculum and instruction coordinator, Nicole Smith, who's a member of the board, and me all met, and we worked on choosing the worthy applicants. Next slide, please. So there's Linda Kitts, someone who will never be forgotten. And in a big way, it's because of the Linda Kitts Formula for Excellence. The purpose of this is to retain and recruit secondary math teachers in Rio Rancho Public Schools by providing access to high quality professional learning, education, certification, and/or technology and resources. Next slide. And Nikki, I'm going to hand this over to you.
Thank you, Pat. And just as a reminder for President Galbraith and Dr. Cleveland and the school board members, there are 3 areas of support that our secondary math teachers could apply for, and those are listed there. The application window was open for the entire month of May. We received 13 applications in this first window. And as Pat DeBasto said, after reviewing and scoring applications by a committee, 4 were chosen to be funded. I have to say that Gage Chavez Cowles graciously declined his award because he received a full scholarship from the New Mexico Public Ed Department for his national board certification. And if we can go to the next slide, we will honor the other 3 recipients for this first round of the Linda Kitts Formula for Excellence. We have Daniel Woodrow here with us, who is a math teacher at Cleveland High School. He applied for funding to help with his national board certification, and he is in the process of waiting to see if he has achieved. And there's a little blurb from him from his application. The next teacher who received an award is Dave Ryan, who is at Rio Rancho High School, and he applied for funding to help with his master's in educational leadership. And then our 3rd recipient is Michelle Adekirk, also at Rio Rancho High School, who requested some funds for a technology resource for a project in her various math classes there. So congratulations to all 3 of those recipients. And we can go to the next slide.
So we want to thank the Rio Rancho Education Foundation for funding this very worthy cause. The next application window will open this month and will close on November 30th, 2021. We really want to work with the principals at the middle and high schools to encourage their math teachers to apply for funding. Our dream is to see an educational assistant who wants to become a secondary math teacher be supported by this Formula for Excellence. That would be a wonderful dream come true. So thank you. Thank you to the foundation and to the Kitts family as well.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. DeVasto. I'm just so grateful for the Rio Rancho Education Foundation and that we have this. This is wonderful. Just another great thing that our teachers can apply to use to help them to be better. And then for our teachers who are on, did they already go out? Those, if I don't know you personally, then I have heard your names in our public school community, and you are well thought of. And I just want to thank you for everything that you do for our students. I like Nikki up there just saying, we're just so grateful for everything that you've done. And I know with speaking with some of you, just how passionate you are about the things that you do. And so we're grateful. We are grateful for that. And so I just want to give the board an opportunity. I know Dr. Cleveland already kind of spoke. Dr. Cleveland, is there anything else you wanted to add to your comments from before? And then I'll just let the board say something real quick.
Just congratulations to everyone for our honorees or your outstanding work, and also to the foundation. It has been a tremendous supporter of public schools and of our district in particular. And we're grateful for the opportunities you've provided. And those of you that were here, I can't see everyone on my screen. I can see Michelle. I don't know if others are here as well. But again, thank you so much for being part of this event this evening. It's great to see you.
All right. Catherine Cullen, would you like to say anything?
Sure. Yeah, congratulations. And this is such a great opportunity for the educators. And I really appreciate everything that the Rio Rancho Education Foundation does for our teachers. It's always great to see the awards, and hearing that they're going to be doing another open application here shortly. That's just wonderful. So it really keeps it out there and get more people applying. So thank you so much for everything you guys do.
And then Jeffrey Morgan, would you like to add anything?
Yes, just want to say thanks for, again, I'm just going to echo what board member Catherine Cullen said and what Amanda said. Just thanks for all you do. And the thing that I really want to thank you for is just always putting the kids first. I mean, I just can't tell you how impactful that is, how important that is, because that means so much to all of us. So again, thank you for all you do.
All right, thank you. And honestly, before you guys leave really fast, if there is something that any of the teachers want to say, usually I don't always do that, but just really quick, if you're like terrified, you can turn off your camera really fast. But Michelle Outerkirk, would you like to say anything?
Sure. I feel honored, first of all. It is such an honor to be able to have a desire to do things and now have the money to do it. And that's the biggest thing with teachers. We have all these desires and ideas and projects, but we can't always execute them. And now we can. So it's a big deal. And I'm really, really grateful. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for adding that. And then Daniel Woodrow, would you like to add anything? Like I said, you can run away.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I don't care. I'm not shy. No, thank you. I mean, national boards is something I've been working at really hard for 2 years to make me a better teacher. Hopefully do that. And like Michelle said, just be able to do that because of sometimes the cost that we have to incur to do these things, to move to different levels or to do the things we want to can sometimes be a little tight. And so having this to help out just really I'm so grateful. My only regret is, I'll be honest, even though I've been in the district for about 12 years, I never had the honor really to either obviously work with or really get to know who Linda Kitts was. But I am honored to receive this in her memory. Everything I've heard about her from a lot of people, she was wonderful. And I just hope I can continue on with some of the good things that she did in this district. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. And then David Ryan, would you like to add anything?
Sure. I'm relatively new to the Rio Rancho community, and I just feel really grateful that I've been welcomed into the community and now feel really supported by not only the people in my department, but the school and the district as well. So I'm very honored to receive the grant.
Thank you. And Mr. Ryan, I did see you have a cross country shirt on in your picture, which I'm a big fan of RRPS cross country. So, so you're awesome. Thank you all so much for coming on. Ms. DeVosto, Mr. and Nicole, is there anything that you guys want to add or anything before we let you all go? Okay.
Just thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you guys. We appreciate. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. There's Dr. Cleveland waving too. Okay.
I just have to say to Dr. Cleveland, now you guys all know what it's like when I only see like 2 or 3 people on my screen. It's from the laptops.
Well, it's really hard, especially when you're working on a laptop. And my 2 screens went dead before this began, and so I'm glad everyone was here and everyone to get a chance. But again, thank you to all of the people who applied and all that put this together. And I echo the words about Linda Kitts. This is a really nice way to honor the special educator that she was.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. And it's so nice. It's always nice to have teachers and such on our meetings. So I'm grateful that they were able to get on. Okay. I'm hoping that I have my agenda set up right. There's just a lot on there tonight. So tonight we're going to move on to H, which is reports. And we don't have any reports tonight. So our next is item I, to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion that needs to take place on any of those items on the consent? And if not, if there's a motion.
This is Board Member
This
Chuck.
is Go ahead.
Go ahead, Noreen.
This is Secretary Noreen Scott. I move approval of the consent agenda.
This is Board Member Jeff Morgan. I second.
Okay. We have a motion by Noreen Scott and a second by Jeff Morgan. And Kim, will you take a roll call vote for us?
Yes. Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
That is 4-0.
Okay, thank you. The motion carries. Okay, for our next, we'll move into business. And so our first business is a report. The Board of Education met in a closed executive session on October 11th, 2021, as permitted under sections 10-15-1H3 and 10-15-1H4 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act. The matters discussed in the closed meeting were limited only to those specified in the notice of a separate closed meeting. Our next item is another report. The Board of Education met in closed executive session on October 11th, 2021 under section 10-15-1H8 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act. The matters discussed in the closed meeting were limited only to those specified in the notice of the separate closed meeting. And then for item C, to consider the approval of the unapproved minutes for September 27th, 2021 of the RRPS board meeting. Any changes that anyone saw on those minutes? Anything that needs to be changed on the minutes? If not, if there's a motion.
This is Board Member Catherine Cullen. I make a motion to approve the minutes for September 27th, 2021.
This is Board Member Jeff Morgan. I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Catherine Cullen and to approve and a second by Jeffrey Morgan. Kim, can you take a roll call for us, a roll call vote?
Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, thank you. Okay, for our next is to consider authorizing the preparation of a written discussion in connection with an administrative adjudicatory proceeding as discussed in closed executive session on 10/11/2021, or approval of the written discussion prepared in closed executive session pursuant to 6/11/212G4R NMAC to be delivered to the parent within 10 working days. Any discussion? And if not, if we can have a motion.
This is Board Member Catherine Cullen. I make a motion to authorize legal counsel in consultation with the board president to prepare a written decision as discussed in closed executive session pursuant to 6/11/212G4R NMAC to be delivered to the parent within 10 working days.
We have a motion by Catherine Cullen, and is there a second?
This is Board Member Jeff Morgan. I second.
Okay. Really quick before we go into roll call vote, Catherine, would you send a copy of the motion that you just made to Kim so she can put it into the minutes for the meeting?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Kim, can we go to a roll call vote for this?
Yes, and thank you, Board Member Cullen. That would be really helpful. Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
and President Galbraith.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay.
And it'll kind of add into it because it was like 6.11. I was just reading the number, so it'll give you information on the numbers.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right. So for our next, making sure I'm going through my notes right. Okay. Our next, to consider acceptance of the donation, as Dr. Cleveland was telling us in her opening comments, consider the acceptance of donation of paper, tables, and movable racks from Amazon's new Albuquerque warehouse. Dr. Cleveland, I know you kind of talked about this before. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add to that?
No, I think I covered it in the introductory comments.
Okay.
So I don't have anything.
This is Secretary Noreen Scott. I move approval.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
This is Board Member Jeff Morgan, I second.
Okay. Morgan. And then just really fast, and if anyone else wants to say anything, you're welcome to. We'll go into our roll call vote. But I just want to thank Amazon and thank Kim for making sure that all went through for us. And I really look forward to working with Amazon more in the future, and hopefully we can have a good relationship with Amazon. But we are grateful for this wonderful donation. Right before we go into the roll call, does anyone else want to say anything real quick? You guys are welcome to. Okay. All right. Okay, Kim, will you take a roll call vote for us on this?
Yeah, and if the board will indulge me, the employee of Amazon who approached me is a parent at Joe Harris. And initially, I think, talked to Trent Hefner over at Joe Harris, and also happens to be a friend of mine. And Trent suggested that he contact me and offer this donation, and that was very, very generous of him. And we look forward to accepting that donation with the board's approval. Vice President Morgan?
Yes.
Secretary Scott?
Yes.
Board Member Cullen?
Yes.
And President Galbraith?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Thank you. And and that's the thing, like we have such a great community of parents and just everything else. So I'm so grateful for that. Okay, for our next, we will consider the adoption of the resolution 21-009 and the open meetings resolution. And so Lauren Hatch, our general counsel, is on to present to us.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Cleveland, I'm Lauren Hatch, the general counsel for Rio Rancho Public Schools, presenting resolution 21-009, which is the annual determination by the board of what is reasonable notice for its meetings. This is in pretty much the same form as last year with a couple of exceptions. Number one, we made changes to conform with the approved version of Board Policy 208 from a couple of weeks ago. And then instead of listing at the end of the resolution a list of meetings to occur over the next year, we are referencing as an appendix the schedule that was already approved by the board in May of this year of the board meetings. With that, I stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Do I have any questions? Catherine Cullen, any questions?
No questions.
Okay. Jeffrey Morgan, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
And Noreen Scott?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a motion on this? Motion to approve?
This is Board Member Catherine Cullen. I make a motion to approve Resolution 21-009 Open Meetings Resolution.
Okay, we have a motion by Catherine Cullen, and do we have a second?
Second by Noreen Scott.
Okay, thank you. Kim, can you take a roll call vote for us on this?
Vice President Morgan?
Yes.
Secretary Scott?
Yes.
Board Member Cullen?
Yes.
And President Galbraith?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you, Lauren Hatch, for putting that together for us.
Welcome.
Okay, for our next, we are going to consider the approval of ITB 2022-006 FA tent rental services. We have Michael Madrid on to present. He's our purchasing director. We also have Kurt Schmidt, our executive director of fine arts, I believe, with us. Okay, I'll leave it to you.
Thank you, Board President Galbraith, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Cleveland. As stated, this item is to solicit board approval for award of ITB number 2022-006-FA for tent rental services. This evening's presentation will be a joint presentation between Kurt Schmidt, our Executive Director of Fine Arts, and myself. I'd also like to acknowledge Dr. Cleveland and thank her for her introductory to this particular item. She identified the various uses and the benefits that this tent rental services will provide the district. The purchasing department initiated this procurement on behalf of the Fine Arts Department, to establish a price agreement for various tent rental. A pricing matrix has been developed and is attached to this board memo. It identifies various tent sizes and weekly and monthly costs for each of those tents. The solicitation responses included just one response from a company by the name of New Mexico Party Rentals, doing business as Amazing Jumps, Tents, and Events. The solicitation was reviewed to ensure compliance and responsiveness to the identified affidavits within the ITB. They were determined to be a responsive bidder, and the request for this afternoon is that the board approve the sole responsive bidder, I should say, New Mexico Party Rentals, doing business as Amazing Jumps, Tents, and Events. With that, I'll stand for questions, and then we'll turn it over to Mr. Schmidt, and he'll provide additional information how the tent rental services will aid the curriculums on the fine arts and also provide services throughout the district.
Okay. Do you have any questions at this point for Michael Madrid before we go to Kurt Schmidt's presentation? Okay, Catherine, do you have anything?
No, I'll wait until the end of the presentation.
Okay. Jeffrey Morgan?
I'm going to wait till the end.
Okay. Okay. And Noreen Scott, anything at this point?
No questions.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and go on. Kurt Schmidt, go ahead.
President Galbraith, members of the board, Dr. Cleveland. As Dr. Cleveland mentioned earlier in that introduction, this is looking forward in case there are changes to the toolkit, or as cold weather gets going in the state, we will have some options as to where our band and choir students can meet. Just to refresh your memories, the toolkit specifies that when playing and singing, if it's indoors, has to be masked with bell covers over the ends of the instruments and 6 feet apart, which can cause some constraints on instruction, especially for the very young, like beginning band students. The teachers need to see their faces and their embouchures where the instruments are being played around the mouth. So to date, a lot of these classes have been held outside, and to our teachers' credit, they're keeping the kids in the shade, and they're sacrificing themselves to the New Mexico sun. So we've got a lot of sunburned teachers out there, but they've been holding classes outside so that they can see the faces and so forth. They have been inside at some levels, but outside is better because the toolkit does not specify any mitigation protocols outside. So the students can be unmasked, unbell covered, and closer than 6 feet. This is also true with our elementary band program. Many schools in that program meet before school. And again, as the weather gets colder, we just need some alternative spaces where this instruction can occur. So this is a way of having something in our pocket in case we need to move outside, so that we have a service available where we can procure some tents. And you might be thinking, well, it's inside, it's in a tent. The toolkit specifies that a structure outside with 25% of its walls removed counts as an outdoor facility. So we could have a tent with one wall removed, and that would constitute an outdoor event, and they would not have to be masked, etc. So with that, I stand for any questions there might be.
Okay, thank you for that. I have a quick question, actually, and it's related and not, but with the school musicals and stuff coming up, are they going to have to be masked up on the stage for their for the musical? Have you guys talked that over at all?
If the musicals were to happen today, yes, they would have to be masked. In fact, we started indoor concerts last week, and singers and instrumentalists will have to be masked while they're inside, 6 feet apart, etc. So were the musicals to be presented at this time, that would be the case. We have a lot of time before those take place next semester. So hopefully conditions will be better.
Yeah, that would be good. And as we have seen, things change quickly around here. So, okay, thank you. We'll go over to the board. Catherine Cullen, you're on the top of my screen, so you just get called on the most.
So I just want to make sure this is only for tent rentals, not purchases, because I think when Dr. Cleveland went through her introductory, she had said rental, and then I think she said purchase at one point. So I'm just making sure we're just renting.
Board Member Cullen, it is just for rentals, and the pricing matrix identifies weekly and monthly rentals.
Okay, yeah, that's what I saw. So I just wanted to get clarification. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Jeffrey Morgan, anything?
No, Catherine Cullen, Board Member Cullen, asked my question. That's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
And Noreen Scott.
I have no.
I heard no and a Q, so I'm going with no questions. And then Dr. Cleveland, I see you're on. If you want to go ahead and give anything up.
Thank you. And Board Member Cullen, you were right. That was a slip of the tongue, and we had talked about both ways, doing it both ways, and finally we settled on the rental. But I do also want to, that there could be other groups that might also benefit. The priority for this, of course, is fine arts, because they have these requirements that other classes don't have. And so we want to be able to continue on with that. So thank you for catching that. That was a slip of the tongue and an error. And it is rental, but certainly other groups might benefit from this as well, given certain kinds of other events. And we did look at lots of different options in this, and this appeared to be the very best. What you might suspect turned out to be true. It's hard to find them, and there are back orders for them. And so the thought of getting some of them permanently, it wasn't, it really, from what I understand, and Mr. Madrid, jump in if I didn't get that right, but my understanding is that the back orders and the long time frame, it was hard to find anyone that would be able to do this. So we're really glad that a vendor was located. And I believe you said there was only one that responded. So we're really glad to have found it.
Dr. Cleveland,
one last comment is you've got to have the right kind or they fly away. And so, you can just go buy one and put up the poles. And if you've ever had those covers for other events, they can take flight very easily. And so you definitely do need the kind that are that will stay and that can be put up and are safe, that they don't fall in. So appreciate the work that Mr. Madrid and Mr. Schmidt did in pulling this all together.
Dr. Cleveland, I just want to say that because this is a new solicitation to the district, we did try to comb the different areas. We checked Santa Fe, we checked Albuquerque, we checked Rio Rancho. We tried to identify as many resources and identify and at least make the information available to those companies that can provide tent rental services. And even though we only got one response, that's consistent to what APS also received when they did their solicitation, just the one response.
Thank you.
I just have one other question, Mr. Madrid and Mr. Kurt Smith, and also to the board, Dr. Cleveland. At some point, if we find ourselves really using these tents on a regular basis, can we come back and evaluate the costs and then potentially looking at purchasing some of these?
Absolutely, we can do that. And like I said, we originally kind of thought that's where we were going to go. And back orders, most of these tents are back ordered for months. So if we find they work very well and think we ought to invest in a permanent set of tents, then we definitely could go ahead and order, and they would be here probably in several months, probably in time for the next school year. So that is a possibility. We will continue to monitor that and look at it and see if we think it would be worth a permanent investment.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board? We have a motion on this. Claudia, will you put up that, I don't know if anyone wrote it down, will you put that back up? I don't know if you have access to it, just so that when they make the motion, they can use the correct name. Maybe you guys don't need it.
I mean, I could make the motion. I've got it right here on
Do you have it down? Okay, perfect.
Yes, so I make a motion to approval of the ITB 2022 through 006 FA tent rental services.
Okay.
This is
And then you
Secretary
want to
Scott.
open
I'll
it.
second.
Ken, do you amend the motion to approve it with New Mexico Party Rental doing business as Amazing Jumpers Tents and Events?
Thank you, Board Member Cullen. I was just getting ready to ask that. Thank you.
Yeah, so you want to just go ahead and amend your thing, Jeff, and name that
Okay.
group. It's up there on the screen for you.
I make a motion for the approval of the ITB 2022-006 tent rental approval services with New Mexico Party Rentals, DBA Amazing Jumps, Tents, and Events.
Thank you. And then do we have a second?
And my second stands. This
Okay.
is Secretary Scott. My second stands.
All right, we have a second by Secretary Scott. So motion by Jeffrey Morgan, a second by Secretary Scott. And then Kim, can you take a roll call vote for us?
Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
and President Galbraith.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, thank you. And thank you
Thank
for
you,
that.
Board President, board members.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
And thanks, Claudia, for sticking that up. I know you're probably ready for your next thing, so I appreciate you putting that up last minute for us. Okay, for our next is to consider the appointment of a large district representative to the New Mexico School Boards Association Board of Directors. And so with Wynn being off the board now, and as Catherine was saying, she has filled that spot for us for the last 2 years, actually. And so that leaves that spot open. I am totally going to put, after Dr. Cleveland talked about Catherine, I'm going to put Catherine on the spot, which is one thing that she loves the most in the world. But if Board Member Cullen, will you just explain a little bit more about the large district representative, just to kind of give us an understanding a little bit better of?
Sure. So a lot of the board of directors are the officers from the regions, but then the large districts also are allotted to have a large district representative that sits on the board of directors. So they do usually meet the day before, like on a Thursday. Our conferences start on a Friday. They'll meet on Thursday to go over New Mexico School Board Association business. So it just takes a bit more time and involvement. I recommend that, obviously you should be going to all the conferences doing this as well as the region meetings. However, in January, you will be getting several new board members. So what you could do is you just fill this time slot until January. Mm-hmm. And you have your meeting in December that will be coming up. And then obviously as the board of director, you're not going to really be doing much at the region meeting because you're not an officer of the region. So, but I recommend that you go to that region meeting as well, just to kind of understand what's kind of going on. But it's, you'll just have basically, December is the conference. So you'll need to be committed to going to that one. And then of course, if you want to continue, then you guys can re-vote on it in December with the other officers.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Catherine. And thanks for, I wasn't going to put you on the spot, but I'm blaming it all on Dr. Cleveland because when she said your name, I thought I need to ask Catherine Cullen to speak. So
does anybody have any questions about it?
Any questions about that? Jeff or Noreen?
No, I don't have any. Thank you, Board Member Cullen, for mentioning that, whoever we decide tonight, we can actually come back and pick another person in December. So appreciate
January.
I'm sorry, January. Yes. Thanks for the insight on that.
Sure.
Okay. So with that, is anyone, we can just discuss as far as, and we can, make a motion and decide who we want. But I'm just out of curiosity, is there anyone that's interested in taking that on? Like she said, it would just be for December. I know there's a lot of crazy work schedules and things like that, but is there anyone that's interested in doing it, including Catherine Cullen, who, even though she's leaving us, but is there anyone that's interested?
Yeah, I'll volunteer to do it if you want to nominate me.
Okay. Okay.
Well, consider that Noreen Scott, Secretary, nominates our volunteer of the year, Jeffrey Morgan.
All right. I think that's great. And so I will second that. I think that would be a great thing for you to do, Vice President Morgan, for you to be willing to do that. Any other discussion on that? Okay. Okay. Kim, can you take a roll call vote for us on Jeffrey Morgan serving as our large district representative?
Sure. Vice President Morgan?
Yes.
Let's see. Secretary Scott?
Absolutely, yes.
Board Member Cullen?
Yes.
And President Galbraith?
Yes.
And I don't know, that wasn't really in the form of a motion, and I don't think I heard a second, so.
Oh, was there not a second on that?
I seconded it.
Amanda did. Yeah.
I seconded it.
Amanda seconded
it,
and
okay.
I
And who made the motion?
Noreen Scott.
I did. Secretary
Okay.
Scott, yes.
All right, thank you.
And I'm grateful for you guys doing that.
Go ahead, Catherine.
Because I was not planning on going to that last conference. I had to say my goodbyes. I don't plan on having the district pay for it. So thank you, because I just prefer not having to do the Thursday and Fridays.
Oh, boy.
Okay, motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I know, Catherine. I'm sad that you're leaving us, because I'll just have you come back and give us all the definitions for everything. And
yeah.
Thank
yeah.
you. You have been such a great resource. Okay. For our next item, it's going to be consider the adoption of the RRPS resolution 21-010, requesting an extension of the deadline for review and comment on the proposed changes to the New Mexico K-12 social studies standards. And on this, I want to invite Dr. Cleveland is on with us. And I know that Dr. Cleveland's discussed a little bit, but, with these new proposed changes, we have a lot in our public comments, and a lot of people have been coming to us and asking us about different things in our curriculum. And these are the standards that everyone needs to be paying attention to that are coming out from the state, are these social studies standards. And so as Dr. Cleveland and I discussed, even though, as she said, one district has already had a no on this extension, but we just felt that it was still really important for us to let our voice be heard, and that we still believe that we should have an extension of the deadlines. And we want to make sure that our community and that the public has the opportunity to review these standards. And there are many of them. I've worked through them kind of in both directions, but that everyone has that opportunity to do that and to make that comment. Dr. Cleveland, what would you like to add to that?
Well, I thought you might like to hear from Carl Eppelman. He is on, and kind of what is involved in that process for the people that work with him, and kind of what we do is we review those standards. And so I'd like to give him an opportunity to kind of share the discussion that he has had with all the CNI staff.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Cleveland, President Galbraith, members of the board. As you state in the resolution, and you stated earlier, Dr. Cleveland, the changes have been fairly extensive in terms of the structure of the standards and the number of standards. So I think it's very important that the community have an opportunity to review them. I also believe that September 28th through the November 12th is not going to be sufficient time for our teachers as well as the community members to give input. So I would certainly support this resolution. I've been in conversation with Todd Resch. He's the secondary curriculum instruction executive director, and Joy Morales, the elementary executive director. And she and Todd both agree that given the amount of work we're doing currently, we have certainly the pandemic issues we deal with. We certainly have MLSS. We're working on our pre-K through 8 ELA standards right now, adoption of materials, structured literacy letters. We do need some more time as a department to really review those. So I certainly recommend that we do that, as well as the public have more time for comment. So I've had conversations with the coordinators, and they also believe it'd be time well spent that we can make sure that we provide that input.
This is Secretary Scott. I have a question. If we get input and we disagree with one of the standards, do we have any opportunity to change that?
Yes. Yes, you do. And there is a hearing in Santa Fe, and they listen to people's concerns or views, or if they're in support of the standards, and they are, take that into consideration. And I know people say, oh, well, they don't do that. They never listen or they never change. That's not necessarily true. A few years ago, we had quite a bit of controversy over the science standards. And a lot of people came forward and they shared those concerns, and there were some changes that resulted from that. And I don't know, Carl, if you want to add anything to that, but yes, there is an opportunity. Yes, they do have hearings. They do listen. And in the past, we have seen some changes based on community input. Carl, what would you add to that?
Yeah, and in fact, they actually, with the Next Gen Science Standards, Dr. Cleveland, exactly correct. There were some changes in the physics, conceptual physics, and other areas we thought needed to happen. And I believe there was a longer period of time. I'd have to go back, and don't quote me on that, but I would believe with this resolution, if it were accepted, if the PED did give more time, we'd have to delay the hearing, which would then allow for people to really have time to be reflective and really form their thinking about the standards when they attend that hearing. So I certainly would support an extension of, I think, 4 to 5 months, like Dr. Cleveland mentioned earlier.
One of the things we would, kind of like the board also to tell us, 4 or 5 months, okay, we didn't put the specific date and give us authorization to put that date in before it is sent, but we didn't put the date in. Simply thought we would ask. The other districts that I have seen their resolution have put July 1st is their date. We have real concerns if it goes that long that we will not be able to get the materials, or that they might just decide to skip over the social studies adoption till sometime in the future. And we think that would be a real shame for our students because our materials are what, Carl, 8 years old now? So
yes.
They're dated, and we do want them to be current, but we also want them to be the materials that we want to have. And so if there are changes, there need to be changes in those materials. You have to give them a little bit of time to do that. And then you have to have time to get those orders in, and it's quite a lengthy process. You're aware of that. Mr. Leppelman and the other executive directors have all shared that with their adoption reports. So it is a comprehensive process. So I'm probably the lone ranger, among some of my colleagues, but I would rather not go until July. I think 4 months, 5 months, we could do a really good job in going through that. But that is, we would probably be the only district for that shortened timeline, at least among the districts whose resolution I've had a chance to actually see. And this is similar to their resolution, but it is not the same as theirs.
Dr. Cleveland, can I add to that a little bit? You're correct on that. There'll be a committee formulated this summer, and I think the date's June, where they would take the standards and they would look at instructional materials aligned to the standards. So I think if we were done by January 30th or so, if they would extend it, there would still be plenty of time for the state to actually look at materials and adopt materials or recommend materials for us to look at. And we're typically involved in that also in the summer work that's done. So I think 6 months would be, if that were to occur, it would actually delay the adoption materials or the actual review of materials. And so I would think January 30 or somewhere in February, that would still give the state time to get and then the community get input, and still then get together in the summer to look at instructional materials.
Mr. Leppelman, what would be your date? Would it be March 1st, April 1st?
You know, I think with the holidays, I think that's some of the problems as we start coming up against November, December, we start thinking there's really a lot more days in there than you think. And I think it's the amount of time the community members need too. I would think probably if we were looking at, ideally, we would probably a 6 months, or really, because you think you lose most of December, January in there, working with staff. But I would say if we could have a 4 to 5 month, which would be what is that, maybe February, end of February would be the latest. But it takes time for us to look at these as a group of teachers. And again, they'd have to extend it for us to allow us the time to do that, and then hold that hearing later, early into next year.
So maybe March 1st?
You know, that would be March 1st would be a reasonable date. Certainly.
Okay. Well, that's exactly what I was going to ask, was what is the date that you all recommend? So March 1st is a good date, and we believe.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good compromise. If you say with the state too, the state needs their time to work to then look at the standards and instructional materials. So that would push their hearing into March.
Notes. Okay, let me just, Catherine, Cullen, do you have any questions or comments you want to make?
And so, Carl, the adoption will be for the fall of next year, correct? When you guys review the material during the summer.
Yes, exactly. And that cycle will be review materials next year. The state will get together, identify materials that do align to this. We'll select from those, or if not, we'll ask for a waiver if we don't think those materials are aligned well enough, like we did with the Eureka Math. Mm-hmm. And then we would then actually, it was the following fall, we would actually have instructional materials in the hands of students. And again, teachers would need the professional development, like Dr. Cleveland said, to be prepared to teach these standards. So There's a lot to be done once these standards are approved.
And why was it that you said there was another district that had proposed this and that they didn't? Is that what you had said, Dr. Cleveland? On this resolution, what was the reasoning behind not doing it? Because obviously it sounds like we need to have some time for review of these.
Let me make sure, Board Member Cullen, I understand your question. Your question is, why did they go till July?
No, you said that there was.
Why did they not go with us? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I understood the question.
Did you say that another district had put this forward and they decided not to do this resolution?
The state had turned them down.
Oh, the state. Okay.
Yeah, that district was Farmington, and their request was turned down. I don't know if it was exactly the same as ours, but I know they submitted a resolution. Their board did, and it was rejected. The only other ones I've actually looked at in some detail was Artesia and Alamogordo. I looked at theirs in some detail. I don't believe they have heard back yet from the state. I believe at the last meeting that I was at, 29 districts indicated that they were sending in some sort of resolution. But I don't know if they are still planning to do that. And especially since one district has already received a rejection of it. But again, I don't know all the details and whether it was different in a lot of respects than what we are submitting. But I did want you to know that that one district had already received a no before going into this.
Do we know the reason why they said no?
Yes, and it's kind of lengthy to go into. I did see the letter, but they felt that the time that they had been given was sufficient. That the time out there that they, we should be able to get this done by the 15th of November. And the group had worked very hard on it. And I know they have. I think one of the things that was a little disconcerting was to hear from some of the members of the committee that served that they didn't feel that a couple of the areas were exactly what they thought it was going to look like. And so I think that's another thing in terms of the hearing, that those people need to be heard because they were on the committee. It didn't come out quite the way they were hoping. Was there some miscommunication? And then the last and pretty prevailing position of the state was that we really needed to move forward in this area. And we don't dispute that. We need to move forward with social studies. We need to get improved materials and in particular in the area of culturally linguistic responsive materials. And so none of us disagree with that at all. But is it enough time? And when I went to our CNI folks, went to Carl, he went to his staff, no one thought it was sufficient timing. And I said the other issue that was disconcerting to me was to have members of the committee say, we didn't think this is how some of this was going to exactly look like. And we would like to at least have a discussion about it. I think their concerns should be heard.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you want to make sure you get it right. And they absolutely need to. I mean, this has certainly been something that a lot of people are looking at to the state. So absolutely, I agree. And yeah, I think, like you said, the date works well. Like March 1st, you're saying 2021?
2022.
2022, yeah. I put 2020. That would be going backwards, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I have that same thing down.
But yeah, it's certainly especially with everything going on with the pandemic, and everybody's been so busy with this year. This first semester, everybody being back, so I can't imagine that. I don't know why they're saying that they won't extend it out. We want to make sure that the state gets it right and not have more problems while they're reviewing materials during the summer. So I'm definitely supportive of this.
Okay. Thank you, Catherine. Jeff, do you have anything else that you want to add or comments?
I'm okay with the March date. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay. And then I was just honing in my Win Coleman, but as we look at this, I mean, we all just need to do, I'm going to use her words, her due diligence. And I know everyone uses those words, but do that due diligence to just make sure that we're all going through these things. I notice a lot of times that we have a lot of people who have opinions about things, but when it comes down to actually looking at it as a whole, they don't do the work that it takes to know what is happening in the state. And once these things are passed, then it is our duty as a district to teach those things in our schools. And so it's important for everyone to make sure that they are reading these standards and understanding them and making those public comments. I see Lauren Hatch is on. Lauren, did you want to add anything to it?
Yeah, Madam President, I just wanted to make a suggestion about where you could insert the date, March 1st, 2022. If you look at the second to the last paragraph where it says, now therefore be it resolved. In the second line, it says, extend the deadline for public comment to allow additional time. We could insert comma until at least March 1st, 2022, and then another comma, and then the rest would remain the same.
Okay. Yeah, I think that works perfectly.
Yeah.
That would be perfect there. Okay. Okay. Anything else from anyone? Thanks, Lauren, for getting on and
yeah, we just didn't put the date in until the board had decided the date was okay. And that's why there isn't a date in there. We pulled out the July 1st date because we didn't think that was sufficient. But as Lauren said, that's really important that we have the actual date in the resolution. So we will be sure that it's in there.
Okay. All right. So with that, do we have a motion? And if that motion is to approve, if you can put the date of March 1st in there.
This is Board Member Jeff Morgan. I make a motion to approve the adoption of the Rio Rancho Public Schools Resolution number 21-010, requesting an extension of March the 1st of the deadline for review and comment on the proposed changes for the New Mexico K through 12 social studies standards.
Do we have a second?
This is Board Member Catherine Cullen. I second.
Thank you. So a motion by Jeffrey Morgan and a second by Catherine Cullen. And Kim, if you could take a roll call vote for us on this.
Vice President Morgan,
Yes,
Secretary Scott,
I think she left.
She had to step off for business.
She had to
matter.
step off, yeah.
okay, Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
and Board President Galbraith.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to make just one other comment that I think is also very important. We are very committed to a culturally and linguistically appropriate curriculum for children. And that doesn't change in any way the support for that. And so I felt like it's important that we make that, we make that statement very clear. And being a Yazzie Martinez plaintiff, I think it's very important that we make sure that that stays on the record. But we do feel like that, just like everyone has said, we need to do this, we need to do it right. And one of the things sometimes people forget is that the instructional materials are going to reflect those standards. And so if your standards aren't clear and they're not, then it's very hard to be able to pick the right instructional materials for our schools. So it's all kind of a package deal, so to speak. And we want to be sure every part of the package is in place so that we can do a good job with it. So I did want to make that closing comment because I think it's important that it be said.
Thank you for that. And actually, Dr. Cullen, I have a question based off of what you just said. You know, when we look at those, as I was going through those standards, there are a lot of standards on there that are good, but I could see it being taken either way. Is there a way, or have they in the past, like you were just talking about, you know, things being clear? Is there a way for them to word those things better so they are more clear? Or is there something that we could do in policy to make those things more clear? And what would be the right way to go about that?
Well, I'll comment, and then Carl, if you want to add anything to that. The standards should be perfectly clear. And if they're not, then that just opens up all kinds of problems for people who have to teach them. So part of the, and this is still kind of fresh in my mind, but we kind of went through that with the science standards, and then they kept working until they were really clear to everyone what exactly it meant and what it didn't mean. And so I think that same process is what we are hoping to see here with social studies, because when all was said and done, I think the folks who were involved in that feel like the science standards were far better than they were when they were originally proposed. And then in terms of how you implement those standards, certainly each district community has some flexibility in how you decide to implement it, or how you build your programs around it. The standards themselves are non-negotiable. And that's why it's so important that everybody have a say in what they are, so that we all can, we can implement them with the favorite term that we used to have is Kathy Ferris's fidelity. But we want to be sure that we're very clear in terms of what those standards are. And let me say just one more thing, I'll turn it over to Carl, about the worst thing in the world you can do to instructional staff, but give them standards they don't understand and are not very clear. You put them at a terrible disadvantage in trying to work through that. So we all have a stake in making sure that we've got those standards, they're clear, it's easy to understand what they are, and you have a real clear idea of what is being expected. But as always with standards, local districts have some flexibility in how you deliver those standards. And that's why each district has its own curriculum. Carl?
Oh, absolutely. As all of us learn things, and we've been students ourselves, if the objective is not clear, enough that you understand why you're learning something and what it is you're learning, you're not going to be able to learn as a learner. But I think teachers also have to have that clarity. And I have gone through them. There's a lot there. There are some that are very specific, very clear. I really like some inquiry standards. They've done a good job there. But in some of the areas you mentioned, President Galbraith, they're fairly, I wouldn't say they're nebulous, but they are unclear. And I think those are areas we'd like to look at and maybe clarify. I do think a glossary is probably necessary to define some of the language in there, which I didn't see, I don't believe, but I think that'd be helpful. Maybe it exists. But there are performance indicators. That's what you'd actually sort of like want to see in there, a little more clearly defined. But I do think overall they've done a very good job. I'm not going to say I think that there's a lot of clarity in some of the areas and not so clear in others. But I think additional time would help us to maybe look at that and get that feedback back. It's really feedback, isn't it, from the people who be using the standards. And that's our teachers, our parents, our students, actually the customers. So it's really just good feedback. Mm-hmm. And a month and a half probably isn't sufficient enough time to get that feedback in, given the pandemic and everything going on around us. So.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you for answering that question. I appreciate it. Thank you for that. Okay, moving into our advanced planning. So October 13th is the fall regional meeting at 5:30. That will be a virtual meeting. I believe that's on our calendar. If I remember seeing it there. Then October 25th is our next regular board meeting at 5:30. November 2nd, we will have the regular local election. I hope everyone goes out and votes. November 8th will be a regular board meeting at 5:30. That meeting will be in person. I just want to make note of that. That's our plan right now, is to have that meeting in person. November 11th, 2021, Veterans Holiday. November 22nd, we have elementary parent-teacher conferences. And also on the 23rd, we have parent-teacher conferences for middle school and elementary. And then one of the best holidays of the year, the 24th through the 26th, will be Thanksgiving break. So I hope you all have a good night. And with that, our meeting's adjourned for tonight. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Kim. And I neglected, Kim, to say thank you for that resolution.